Hi, Noel.
Hi guys, lovely to meet you.
Hello, Noel.
Happy birthday. A little late.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
yeah, I'm trying to forget about that right now.
So Merry Christmas. So
Yeah, we'll do that one. Yeah, and to you, Merry Christmas.
Tell us about your new work with the Brazilian singer. Could you could you show an expert for of this track here?
Yeah, so there's a girl called Mell Peck,
Mel Peck.
Brazilian girl.
Yeah,
You know her? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
I know.
yeah, I thought you might. You know, she yeah, about it's close enough to 2 years ago. Her
Oh,
name kept coming up in kind of I was getting sent messages by people. I always do, and you do, you kind of lots of them you kind of read and you kind of forget about, but her name kept coming up every so often, like a lot more than other people. Um, and I started looking her up on YouTube, and I kind of like the way she is, and then kind of made contact through some friends of mine, and we just kind of we got talking over a while about, there was not really any plan to begin with, and then COVID came along, and everybody was stuck at home 2 years ago, like couldn't do anything. And I had been writing away. I'd been writing for other people in the months before that, but I had a lot of songs that were kind of ideas that needed more fleshing out. But I asked Mel how she would feel about, writing some stuff and seeing what would happen with it, if it would work, if it wouldn't, and um,
so new
I
stuff.
knew Mel could, yeah, all new songs, and all done here at I have a studio at the back of the house. It's a very small setup, but it's where I've worked for a long time. And it just kind of evolved from there. I sent her one song, see how that would be. Um, and she was keen to take part in it, and to see what would happen. And now she did tell me from the start, that Portuguese is her first language and it's what she would feel comfortable singing in. And I was like, fine, that's not an issue. The language thing, I mean, we can, if we need to, we can work around it if we need to translate it to other languages, but it's mainly melody, lyrical content, that kind of thing. Um, and that's how it began. One song turned to two, turned to three, to I think we're up to 20 something now, 2 years later. Um, and how it's predominantly worked is that I work here writing as I've always done, and I send Mel ideas, and then she'll send me back some roughs, kind of ideas of what she's thinking, and I might edit the song or what I've done to fit more and where she's going with it, or then I'll send her ideas, and we kind of be over and back like that. It's a slower way of writing because we're not together, but we've made it work. And yeah, we have, as I said, 20, I think we're around 22 or 23 songs maybe at this point. There's a lot of music there. And I guess it kind of snuck up, on both of us, in that it began as something to do during lockdown and has just evolved into this whole project.
Okay, and just a curiosity. Do you write lyrics too?
No, Mel does all the lyrics,
Okay.
and her melodies, and then I might suggest ideas with the melodies, or harmonies to go around them and stuff like that. But lyrics has never been my strong point. I would give an opinion, but it's mainly, it's definitely music is more where my passion is in the whole thing. And like I've done other projects over these 2 years. You know, I worked on a couple of other projects. There was a song I did with a girl called Brona Gallagher last year or the year before, I can't remember. And then I did the soundtrack for a documentary. So all the while I was doing these projects, this thing with Mel was tipping away in the background. That, you know, if I needed to take time away from it, I would, and then come back to it again. And I found that definitely the songs, say in the past year, are far better than the songs that we began with, because you get to know somebody and it gets to evolve, and I think the songs have just become better and better over the 2-year period. And then, you know, I hinted at this before, but I, in the process of trying to get it all organized, that we get the music out now, because otherwise you can keep writing and writing for forever, and there's no point if nobody gets to hear it. So on New Year's Day, I'm just going to put a song up on my website that I did with Mel. It's like a free download. There's an English version and a Portuguese version of the same song. Okay.
Just to let put this right. It's incredible. And yes, you're working with a Brazilian singer, and I need to congratulate to Crybaby. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Crybaby.
Thank you.
And it's an incredible news. Thanks
Good.
a lot.
Good. No, thank you. It's always kind of, it's nerve-wracking, if you understand what that means. Anytime you work with someone new, and like, obviously I'm known for the Cranberries and that world, and I'm very proud of that, and I love doing that, and you know, and still very much involved in all that kind of Cranberries related stuff. But then you go and you do something else, you are always leaving yourself open for those comparisons. But I think I kind of, you have to look at this as another project. It's not trying to be the Cranberries, or it's not the Cranberries in any way. This is a separate thing, in the same way that any one of us would have gone and done other things, you know. So I'm excited, and so is Mel. Mel has not released anything before like this, so I've tried to tell her that, you know, she be ready for mixed reactions, because you know you will always get that. But look, I mean, we're really happy with how it sounds. I mean, this first track is very much, it's almost a fully acoustic track, because and the reason being, it was out of necessity. We wanted to get music out, but a lot of the other songs are bigger songs. There's lots, it's full band type of thing. But because the production is a lot busier, I wanted to spend more time kind of mixing it and getting it sounding the best it could. Whereas this acoustic track, because there's very little on there, it was an easier song to finish. And it's not a commercial song in any way. It's not like a single type of thing. It is basically an introduction to what we've done.
It's good to start.
It's a song, yeah, and it's probably not a song that will end up on an album or on anything else. It'll just be a standalone track. And then I think the next song, which will probably be more of a traditional style single, is a lot bigger. It's full guitars, and you know, it's everything, drums, the works. So it's just the kind of, I kind of was keen to get the word out there as well, because it's nearly 2 years. It's a long time to work on a project and keep it quiet as well, because I've been trying to, you know, we've said nothing to anyone about this. You're the first to know. So
you said about the other songs that be a full band, right? I know it sounds strange, but did you think in any moments to bring the guys, or this is not the idea, it's just a project?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I say, it's full band, but apart from the drums, I'm playing everything.
Okay.
So there's no band. It's like, it's me playing keyboards, strings,
You're the mono. You're the mono bands again.
drums. Yeah, like not drums is the only thing. There's a guy I work with here called Ben Wonders, who I met years ago. He's a drummer and he owns a studio. And so Ben knows about the project because he's been playing drums on all these tracks for the past 2 years. But Ben has done a lot of work with me as well. He played on Crybaby. He's the drummer on that track as well. So it's basically been Ben on drums and doing kind of extra little bits of production for me. Me playing everything else. And then there's real strings on some of it that I worked with a guy who worked on the Cranberries acoustic album, the one where we did kind of we reworked our tracks into kind of, we played with the chamber orchestra. So the guy Ken Rice, who was on that, is a good friend of mine. So I wrote a lot of the string parts on keys and I sent it to Ken, and Ken did that at home. Because this is the thing, a lot of this was done during lockdowns, so none of us could ever be in the same room. So you're kind of passing it over and back kind of thing. And then Mel's at home doing the vocals and kind of taking guidance from me to there and then sending it back. But, and like Crybaby, I did in a kind of a similar way in that I had never met Brona. I did the track, kind of that way as well. I met Brona when we eventually did a TV show here in Ireland. Yeah, months ago. That was our first time meeting. So, I've kind of gotten really used to this way of working now. But yeah, it's exciting. And I mean, I've had to brush up on my Portuguese a lot because Mel sends through the lyrics and then I, we're translating them over and back and I'm kind of trying to pick out words that I remember and things like that.
Portuguese is hard.
Yeah, I've discovered that. Yeah. So, look, hopefully, and I mean, this is early days, that we'd love to try and play this stuff live is the idea.
Okay.
Maybe I come there and kind of, because predominantly it's in Portuguese. We've worked on a lot of the tracks in both languages, but there's far more in Portuguese than in English. So it would make sense to do any live shows in Brazil or, in South America in general, really, to begin with. Now that's a bit off yet.
Okay.
But look, that's the hope eventually that we get to that point.
So the plan is to see how it works over the next year, basically.
Yeah, like I think we have this song, and then I kind of know what the next single will be, the first single, say proper single.
Okay.
And then I think we would like to try and release the full album then. Like there's too many songs for one album. So I think we would pick maybe the best 12, roughly, and release it as an album. We don't even have a title yet of what call ourselves. Right now it's just Noel Hogan and Mell Peck. That's all it it goes as at the moment.
That's enough for us. That's great.
That'll work for now. Yeah. So yeah, look, hopefully you'll like it. As I said, it's a very, very mellow sound, this first track, but it doesn't really represent a lot of, the other ones are bigger, heavier songs and louder songs.
Okay. Do you show this at New Year's Eve? That's it. New Year's Eve. The song.
New Year's Day. It'll be, I think it's 1:00 my time. So that would be, that you're 3 hours roughly behind, I think. So, so yeah, New Year's Day. I figured it was a good way to start the year.
For sure. We would like to ask some questions about the Cranberries.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said about when you have a lot of songs, and you need to pick up some songs for an album. Uh, when you have in your career, for example, a lot of tracks was besides, how hard was to pick up and choose what is beside and what is not beside? Because for us, there's a lot of besides so incredible. And
yeah,
we collect our playlist and put all the things together, and it's so hard to do.
yeah. And we found it hard too. Honestly, it was never easy. I mean, what we tended to do was we'd finish everything, and then you kind of, we used to have like charts up in the wall with, you know, the songs and then what parts were all done, and you're kind of looking at it going, and everybody would have their favorite ones. You know, I might have three that I love, and then the rest are, you know, they're good, but, and then so on. And you tended to first get, you picked your few that you really liked. You know, I liked Dolores, like Mike, like, and so on, Ferg, and then you would find that a lot of the time there'd be one or two that we all have on the list that is the same one, which usually, you know, are kind of no-brainers. You know, they're the ones that they're really catchy, they're really, you know, kind of cranberry sounding.
Yeah.
And then out of the list, you know, you'd have a few that I liked that maybe the guys didn't so much, and vice versa. And we'd start to kind of make up playlist. And then when we worked with Stephen Street, Steve would also have his list, and we kind of dwindle it out. Then one would come out and another, and, you know, you kind of get the list shorter and shorter, and kind of and there'd be ones that, you know, were singles that were kind of more commercial sounding, that you think they kind of have to go on because that's a single and that's a single. So maybe you have three singles, so they're definitely on there. And then and bit by bit, it's a very long process that kind of none of us liked. We all hated, because I've had songs
and the
like
record
I can't.
company.
Yeah, you know, we were really lucky with the record company. They tended to leave us be a lot of the time from the beginning. I guess the fact that we did well with the first album, it was quite successful for them, and we did that away in Dublin on our own. We didn't ask for any help, we didn't ask for any input, we just did it, we delivered it, and it did well. And I think they trusted us then because of that, because we used to hear about all these stories of bands having to fight with record companies to get singles out or to get things going, you know, and we never had that.
It's great. It's great.
Like I do know, look, Zombie, they were a bit, they didn't mind it being a single, they just didn't want it to be the first single.
Yeah.
Because it was so far away from, I think you had Dreams and Linger were the first two singles.
Yeah.
And then you had Zombie, which was, you know, a massive step away. And we kind of, you know, we said, right, look, we really wanted it, you know, we pushed and pushed. And then we said, look, we have Ode to My Family, it's the next single. And if people don't like Zombie, you know, we're back to the more traditional Cranberry sound anyway then. So I think there was a compromise. Then they kind of went, yeah, look, that's fine. You know, then I guess we have a backup plan for it. And so we were kind of left alone. We were never really kind of told, oh, you can't have this song or that. You know, we were kind of left be. And then we would make up playlists of the running order of how it should be. And that was it. It kind of, that it evolved into whatever amount of songs would end up being on an album. And then the rest would be B-sides. And we were lucky that we had enough songs that we had B-sides, you know, that we weren't struggling and kind of having to come up with or kind of just put an instrumental version of the single or something, you know, kind of something to fill up the other side a bit, because, you know, it does happen from time to time. And I'm sure, look, and over the years, there's songs when I look back and I think maybe that should have gone on the album, and you know, this one shouldn't have, and kind of none. I can't think of any right now because I get confused with which songs were on which album. It's so long ago.
Okay.
But you know, you can do. I found when we were doing the reissues in the past few years, there are songs I forgot altogether that were on the album that were kind of buried, kind of later in albums that are really, really good songs that I guess we just forgot over time and we never played them live and things like that.
Almost all the tracks are fantastic.
Thank you.
So let's talk about a bird hatchet because we have little information about this, obvious because of exposure. But we find interesting the work involved in booklet. Whose idea was to call Storm Torgerson? From Pink Floyd?
Oh, with Storm, yeah. So I had a friend who worked for another record company he worked in Ireland where we began, and him and I became really good friends, and I'm still friends with him to this day. And he knew Storm and introduced me to Storm in London, and he was just fascinating. You know, he was like no one else any of us had ever met, and brought him down to the studio, and everybody just fell in love with him. He was this kind of larger than life character, and then, you know, we all knew what he had done, and we'd seen, you know, particularly the Pink Floyd stuff, and you know, he used to come down and he'd sit there and just listen. He'd sit at the back of the studio. He loved to listen to the songs to get his ideas from, and it just came about like, yeah, you know, he'd come back then with these kind of boards, these big huge boards with all these, like, this idea represents this idea represents that, and there'd be, you know, and you're looking at it initially going, I don't get what's happening here at all. But once he explained it, and it would be, you know, a reference to some line in a song somewhere, or the idea of, you know, the collection of songs made him feel a certain way, and this is the picture you're getting then. And you know, that was it. And we worked with Storm. I think it was for 2 albums then. But we used to just love meeting him and going out for dinner with him, and he would just he was an amazing character.
And you guys worked with Benedict Fenner, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's a very different and interesting album with a lot of horn arrangements, right? It's a metal, loud and clear. There's a sax on the sweetest thing, and it's incredible. How were this instrument come for the album? These ideas?
I guess, like we had taken a break, you know, for quite a few years before, like, we got to the end of the 3rd album, and we were exhausted. Everybody was just tired and needed a break from the whole thing. You know, we had done it, I guess, since, like, we'd left school, started the band, and we'd had zero life at all outside the band for a long time, and we didn't mind. I mean, we loved it. It was great. I mean, the band was so good to us, and I mean, we were kids, really, in many ways. We were very, very young, and we just thought, you know, you start a band and you hope you do well, but we did, you know, we were like so big, and then, but we were starting to miss kind of, we were ringing our friends, and everybody was seemed to be kind of doing that thing you do in your early 20s and kind of, you know, going out enjoying themselves and just kind of living their lives. And, you know, we missed a lot of that stuff. And I think that, and people were starting to get married and then talk about kids, and we just said, look, maybe we just take a break for a while, and that's what we did. And we had no kind of time limit on it. It was just, let's go take some time off, and when we want to do it again, we will. And when we went back to do it, we wanted to kind of just try new things. I think we wanted it to be fresh for us again. And I think that's what part of that whole thing of bringing in other instruments and trying different sounds, it was something we hadn't done before. And, you know, we met Ben. Ben actually came on as an engineer for the demos, but we hit it off with him. And we just kind of instead of stopping after the demos, we kept going. Those demos evolved into the album, and we were back at it before we knew it, and just really enjoying it as well, because it was a lot of experimenting going on for us within our sound. And I think every band needs to do that every now and again, and it wasn't, I think it was the first time we had gone into the studio without a producer. So we felt kind of more free to try things, Now that can have mixed results, where you can kind of chase your tail a little bit, because it's good to have someone there to say, look, that works, this doesn't. Because when it's 4 musicians together, they're going to think everything works, It's just kind of the way it is. Yeah.
That's our sound. And how is it so different to make our own now, like Mell Peck, and with a great record, a big record company? It's so different to work.
Yeah, it's like a big record company is great to have, to get it out there to the world.
Yeah.
I think, I know everybody says these days, you don't need a record company, and you can just put things up online, and you can. That's all true, and it does work for people. I guess the machine that the record company has does help as well in its own way, and that, for just making people aware that it's out there. It's kind of it's a kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. You don't want to be told what to do by a record company, but at the same time, you don't. It's nice to have them there to go, look, I want to, I live here in Ireland, and I want to put an album out in Brazil. It's so far away from me that they've got an office there that can do that, that can help with that kind of thing. And look, things have changed a lot from when I began. I mean, you couldn't do it at all before. When I began, you needed a record company. There were no options. Whereas now, there are ways to do it without a record company. And you hope that even sites like your own, it starts to spread word of mouth, and it kind of grows more organically that way. So I think each way of doing it works. It just they're just widely different from each other.
But with the Cranberries, BMG is taking care.
Yeah.
Okay, great. About some materials, like MTV Unplugged, Flat Festival, there's something on the plane to do something with that?
Not at the moment. I think we kind of a lot of the time, say with the MTV stuff, they own that, Yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, kind of red tape involved in those things, because they're owned by MTV, or a lot of the festivals that would have recorded their own thing, kind of, they own the rights to those things. So it becomes quite a kind of a thing to try and kind of get these things out there, and I'm not saying it can't be done, but it sometimes takes years to kind of from when you make the initial call on it. Because I think we used Yesterday's Gone on one of the last, and even there's a lot of paperwork even to just get that one song up there, kind of thing. And that's just the way it is. It's just it's like that with everything. And it's like when people look, the same thing can be said. People contact me about using one of the Cranberry songs in something, and as much as I'd love to say, yeah, that's fine, but there's record company and there's publishers, there's 101 people.
It's not so easy.
It's not, and it's quite. It's trying to explain that sometimes to people that, look, I have no problem with it, but it's not me you got to talk to. There's a kind of a chain you got to go through. So it's the nature of the beast, really.
It's the nature of big companies. That's
Yeah.
documentaries about the bands on digital platforms like Netflix or something like that.
Yeah, like we're working on that. I mean, so we've kind of said it that the short version of this is that years ago when we were doing rehearsals for the acoustic tour, which I'm roughly guessing is possibly 5 to 6 years ago at this point. We had this idea about making a documentary, and it would be about the band starting out and the success of the first album, and it would be all the early days and you know, kind of getting to that point. So we started filming that, and we did a bunch of interviews individually, and these turned out to be the last interviews Dolores did before she passed away. And we have all of those, and we're all kind of speaking about, you know, we're talking mainly about starting out and getting to the point of the first album. Then obviously Dolores passed away, and time went by, and we thought, you know, we might as well make this documentary about the whole career of the band now. You know, this kind of full 30 years. It didn't really make sense anymore to make about the first few years. So we decided to do that. We started meeting with production companies, and that was all working. You know, we met with a few different companies talking about directors who would do it. And then COVID came along and everything stopped. And mainly a lot of last year, when everybody went into lockdown, the documentary didn't move forward one little bit. And then now that things this year kind of started to pick up a bit, we started the discussions again with different people. We've been approached, since that time has passed, we've been approached by more directors and more production companies about taking on the thing. So we still want to do it. Everybody, you know, wants to do it. We're back to the thing as well of, we have to get everybody on board. You know, now we obviously have to speak to Dolores' family as well about this, because that's a separate thing outside the band as well now. So we are trying really hard to get this thing going. Like I said, we have like early interviews done of talking about things, you know, that nobody would have seen before. And even, you know, when it is agreed on that it will go ahead, it's probably still going to take a year from that moment to get it. You know, these things are so, because between getting all the interviews done, I suppose the archive footage, you know, there's so much stuff. But look, at some point in the next couple of years, I would hope that it would be out there and kind of up. As to where it will be, whether it will be, you know, on Netflix or in cinemas or on iTunes, or you know, we're still having those meetings. And like, I literally, the last phone call I took before the Christmas break was about this, you know. So it's a constant, it's there. I do think if COVID hadn't come, that we might have been further down the road with it. It certainly it knocked a year off it, of the kind of process, really, in that it slowed it down.
Okay. Can you tell us about the process and the production with Richard Walters and the process of Mother Band? Because it's a great album, and Richard Walters is a great dude with you.
No, yeah, thanks. That was that album was I guess kind of got into more. Yeah, it's around then, and some of those songs I had kind of started thinking about the next Cranberries album and a different kind of sound again, and I'd kind of gotten more interested in using computers and learning, you know, how to program and things like that, and I just thought it was a different element to bring in to the whole thing. And so we had come back, and I think we had done, you know, we did the the fourth and fifth album, and I thought, you know, maybe for the next one we do a different kind of sound. I started this stuff, but a couple of things were happening. I guess we were getting to the point again where we felt maybe it was time to take a break, as we had done a few years earlier. And also the sound, I guess, in fairness, some of the songs I brought in were probably a bit too far away from the Cranberries to be Cranberries. And it kind of wasn't kind of met with much enthusiasm by anybody. And
With
I
Richard
kind of
is
thought,
so acoustic and so melancholic with Richard.
yeah, it's a different thing. And so around the same time as that, you know, we decided, look, we did a tour and then we'd take a break, and that's what happened. And then I had built up all these songs in a similar way that I have done in the past couple of years. And I had never worked with anyone before outside of the Cranberries, just the Cranberries. And I kind of parked myself up in London with a guy called Matt Vaughan, who was a programmer that I met during this time, because we were recording upstairs in Townhouse and Matt was downstairs. So when we were the Cranberries album, I'd go down to Matt and just having chats, and kind of I was picking his brain, trying to learn how to do things, you know.
He worked with the
so when we finished up,
he worked
was
with the
working. We were doing the we were doing the Cranberries album, and then the engineer who worked on that album was Chenzo Townsend, and Chenzo knew Matt and introduced me to him, and then I met Matt, but we didn't work together at that time. I used to just kind of ask him tons of questions about how to do stuff, and then when the Cranberries took a break, I went back over to Matt and we started the mono band album. And I would just approach singers that I had met through other people and ask them if they wanted to, you know, sing on some tracks I had. And sometimes I would give the same tracks to give this guy 3 tracks, give this girl the same 3, and see what would happen, you know. Fantastic. Yeah, and I did that, and then I would pick kind of what I thought was the strongest version, and did that for, I guess, about a year, just over a year, and that became the mono band album then. And I met Richard Walters during that time, and Richard and I kind of particularly kind of hit it off, and we went on to do a few other things afterwards. The monoband album was never meant to be played live. That wasn't the plan, because it was a lot of computers. You know, I had been asked then to go to South by Southwest to play, and I just thought, yeah, why not? Not really thinking how I was going to do it live, but we managed. I kind of got a makeshift band together, and my brother Mike, who plays in the band, Mike on bass, came along, and we had a couple of singers, and you know, we made it work. It was good fun. It was good to get that out of my system as well, to kind of try something different.
But today, you produce your own work, just you.
Yeah, more so now. I think a lot of that is confidence that I probably didn't have for a long time.
Right.
And it's over time I felt more confident to do that, because I would question myself a lot. But I do think, like, it's nice to get other ears on a song as well. So I have a kind of a group of people I trust, who their taste in music, you know, is pretty good, and I play stuff for them, and kind of get their opinion on things, and
you can trust them,
you know. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Yeah.
Do you have some time?
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. Talking about production, you said on a recent interview about the Faithful Departed, you said something like that. Today, I think that Faithful Part could have a different production path. Say, you
Hmm.
said something like that. Okay. My point is, do you think that the initial idea of this album or the last idea of this album changed or could be changed?
Yeah, like I guess at the time, looking back in it, we did the first two albums and we kind of, it was this kind of whirlwind of touring and writing and playing. And then we rushed into, to the Faithful Departed then. And I always thought afterwards that it might have been the right time to take a break before we did that.
Yeah.
Because we did it in what my memory of it is quite rushed. Not that we went in and went, oh, we got to get this done quickly, but it all felt like there's this urgency when there wasn't. We came off tour straight in, and we worked with a new producer that I wouldn't probably have been my first choice. And it just, I don't know. I think there was definitely a vibe amongst us all that we were starting to kind of get tired at that point. Because we never really, I think we did a tiny bit of touring for that album, but not really a whole lot compared to other albums. And a lot of that was exhaustion, and you can even see if you look at some of the videos from around that time, like Dolores is particularly skinny, she's tiny in those videos, and
it's a non-stop. It's a percent.
Yeah, it's just constant, So, I've often wondered like that, if we'd have taken time out and then went, okay, now we're going to do the album with whomever it might have been, production was that. I don't think that's really the issue. I think that it was probably done too soon after the second one. But don't forget, at the time we were so successful that you had record companies and management that were making a lot of money from the band. And as well as the band itself, let's be fair, and everybody was thinking, yeah, let's just do another album and not worry really about the kind of side effects of all of this. And it's, I guess it's not that I don't like the album. I guess my memories of around that time aren't great.
And it was a very difficult time. Reading the newspaper and the facts, I know that Danny Cordell passed away, and Sylvia Redmond, I think, was a friend too, and the grandmother of Dolores. So it's a very, very difficult time for me.
Yeah, there was a lot of things going on personally. And like Dolores, I think, she was quite open about it. Like, she was kind of ready to have a nervous breakdown a lot of the time, and I started having panic attacks, worrying about things. And I mean, I guess writing it always come very easy up to that point. And I think it, for me personally, was one of the hardest times to kind of just be there in the room. You're there, but you're not. You're kind of, you're showing up to the studio, you're doing what you have to do, but you're not hanging around, you're kind of gone. Whereas before, you would have just, whether you were needed or not, you would have kind of hung around all day because it was a good place to be. So, but I think, look, it's a mark, it's a kind of a mark of its time, and this is where the band was. And I think each album any band does is that this is the mark of that moment in time. This is where they were. If any album, I guess you could say, would sound different if a band did it a year later or a year earlier. It just, because your headspace is completely different about that time.
And he said in a recent interview too that you found 3 demo tracks from the fifth part produced by Tim Palmer just reference. That's right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Then I had completely forgot we had ever worked for them. And I don't mean that many disrespect to him. It was Ferg. Ferg has a great memory I mean, it's amazing. His memory is like, we used to go to things and be like, do we know that guy? And he'd be like, yeah, we met him like 2 years ago, and he could tell you where, the name of the guy. I mean,
Thanks,
it was just, we'd let him take the lead then, whereas,
he's the guy.
yeah, I think the rest of us weren't so good. So Ferg remembered that we had demoed with Tim, and so the record company, when they went looking, then once the record company know that this happened, they have amazing archives, and they can find this stuff, and they can get in touch with people like Tim, and he still had the demos, so he was able to supply those,
But I need to ask. It's so different from the final track onto the fifth part. And can you tell us what track? Or...
let's keep that as a surprise, I think, right?
Okay.
Because
okay.
They're different. Production wise, you'll notice they're different. Okay. But I think the bones of the song, like I think Free to the Side might be one of them. Okay, and don't hold me to that now, but the bones of the song is there still. You'll know it like structurally, but I think there's more stuff kind of going in or coming out, or they're depending on what track it is. There's a slight different vibe there for sure. And even I think on some of them, I'm trying to remember now because it's a while since I heard them, I don't think the lyrics were fully finished, so there's slightly different lyrics on some of the stuff as well, I think, to what ended up being. But that would be kind of normal with, I think most bands would do that, where there's ideas, you kind of put fillers in until you figure out this is going to, I have this idea, but I don't know what I'm going to say here or what I'm going to play here. So I just put something in for now, and then you revisit that later on. So they are there. That's done and dusted.
And it's about production. Listening to each Cranberries album, it is possible to notice some brands that each one has. As you said, each one is so different. But I mean, only to argue, for example, a lot of tracks use a kind of pedal along with the guitar to slide. Death of the Lament, Everything I Said. It's live, we can see doing this. All these are playing it. You have this consideration for each album. It's some idea for on a whole album that it shows on the album, or no, it happens.
I think it just happens. I think it's back to the kind of the moment you're in, and it's a kind of it's like a time capsule that it captures. You go, this is how I play now at this moment in time. And like, if I went to write Linger today, it wouldn't be the same as it is. Or Dreams, they would be different songs, because I don't play like that anymore. And I think that's what it is. It's you learning as a musician. And I've always been a big believer of like keeping the demos as even the album tracks, because you write a song, and it's easier to do it now where you have the technology at home, where you write the song, and those first few days there's this amazing high of getting these parts, and you write in a certain way, you play in a certain way, and you often find, okay, I'm going to go back and redo it now months later and make it better, but you can't, because that's that moment gone. Now sometimes it sounds better when you play it better, or whatever it might be, but I find a lot of the time it's just a moment that you're in, and it's the way you play, and it's a feeling. And then it's gone. And I think over the space of a year or two, when an album is being kind of created, that you would play a certain way, and then you find, even you go off and you start to play live more for a while, you will end up changing the way you play slightly. Because if you listen to us live as the years went on, we sound nothing like we did live 20 years ago, and particularly not on the albums as well. So it's just, yeah, and I think you're right. Like, each album has its own sound, and it's in that bottle then for that time, and then it moves on. I guess the trick is that you don't jump too far ahead to the point that you don't sound like yourself anymore. So you know the way some bands, they deliberately want to, they do, a rock album, and then they go, oh, forget about that, we're going to go dance or whatever it might be. And then all the fans are like, what the hell is this kind of thing? And so I mean, I think it's just an evolution of a band. It's just, this is the next step. And as you get older, you work with more people, and you start to see how they work, and that kind of soaks in there as well then, and you take all that on board as well. And that's why I love working with so many people now, because you're learning something all the time that you hopefully, like, I'm doing this over 30 years, and I'm still want to learn all the time how this is done and how that's done. I mean, you can never say, oh, I know it all, I'm done now, you can't. I mean, anyone who does that, I think, is very foolish.
In 2011, after the reunion tour, you guys recorded Roses. I remember reading that you loved the track Conduct. You said something like that it resembles something like a musical storm. You said something like that. Can you tell us a little bit about Conduct? Because it's for the fans, it's something like Linger. It's in the top 5 for all the fans.
Yeah. I mean, it's it is a very classic Cranberry sounding song.
Yeah.
And it builds and it builds, and it was one of those songs that, like Linger, came together very quickly. Some songs, you get these first few bits and you go, wow, what's that? And then it seems to write itself almost. And then I particularly love the end part with this, when the strings come in and it builds, and then Dolores' voice is there. And yeah, I mean, when you get that kind of the hairs in your arms kind of stand when you hear a song, that kind of thing. And I've always loved that with music, that if a song can do that to you, and that's kind of one of those songs that that I loved writing. I love writing those kind of songs. That, and I'm a big fan of making it big at the end. Here's the end is coming, and it's going to be big and grand and over the top. And it's one of those, like, it always kind of reminded me, there was a band I used to listen to called the Cocteau Twins.
Yeah.
And the start of it was very much influenced by that kind of guitar, and but it was like our version of that. And then it has this kind of swing to it as well then. So it's just some songs, and I'm glad to hear that it's kind of a big fan favorite, because it has all the elements that I think a Cranberry song should have. And we used to love playing it live. It was like such a fun song, because it's a long song as well, and it's kind of, you worry sometimes if it's too long, do people lose interest in it? But that's where you go back to that, having that big grand, kind of ending on it as well then.
Roses is so loved by everyone. Is there still unpublished material from the band to be released?
Possibly, to be honest, because
hope so.
I thought that we had kind of used everything. You know, I didn't think there was anything out there. But every time we've done a kind of a look through the archives for whatever reissue it might be, we found stuff. You know, either the record company shows up with something, or someone we worked with remember you went to this studio and you did that. So I had been telling everyone for years that no, we have everything everyone has heard. There's nothing out there. But I've been very wrong with that. So I can never ever say there's not more stuff there. There's quite possibly.
After the reissue of everybody else, for example, did you find something new that unfortunately is not on the reissue?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think what I think, especially for the first one, we kind of gone through everything. We spent a long time putting that one together. Okay. And particularly there was a lot of years where we weren't with any record companies. You know, this is pre being signed and when we started out. So we were looking for a lot of stuff like that we had in our own houses, you know, like that first demo of Dreams was on a cassette that I found on my garage floor that, you know, none of us had remembered. And it was just somebody was looking out for us because it was just sitting there looking at me. Had not seen it in years. So, you know, there are things I'm sure still sitting in cupboards and somewhere that we've forgotten about, that hopefully will show up at some point. We've been very lucky so far with what we've done, that there's been, you know, there's been alternative versions of songs like that. But like a lot of material that kind of no one's ever heard, I don't know if there is so much of that. There are, we used to sound check. Yeah, you know, when we sound checked before we could write on computers, when we used to sound check, we used to record the sound checks as a kind of a writing session. So there's like hundreds of that cassettes that we used to use, and they're around somewhere, but I'm not sure. They could be full of hours of rubbish as well, for all I know. So it's hard to know. But so to say,
just send it to us.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a job someone has to listen to. Yeah. So look, I don't know. I mean, I hope maybe there is, but I couldn't say for sure.
Okay. Just to finish, as a journalist and as a fan of the band, I follow several generations from the elders who have heard and continue to listen to Cranberries, to children who are discovering with their parents. Then we had in the end, the Grammy and the zombie billion views. It's something personal, but I'd like to speak about it. I can't picture many bands that had such a strong worldwide embrace. Definitely, we have Beatles and Queen, but can you guys already get a sense of what Cranberries are becoming with time? Because it's so surreal.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, we're more surprised than anybody, and that's the truth. I mean, when you're in the middle of these things, you don't see outside of it. You know, it's to simplify it. I got up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, I
You
came down. I had my breakfast. I had my breakfast, and then I went to work, and I did that, and you know, kind of still what I do to this day, and on a different scale, but very much, you know, and we never took any, like, we knew, look, obviously we knew we were a big band, we could tour the world, and it was great, and we loved it. But I don't think it was really until Dolores passed away and the following months after that, that this sudden, it was a moment, I guess, where all Cranberries fans came together at once, and you start to see it as one big picture. Because if the Cranberries went to Brazil, you saw the Brazilian fans. If the Cranberries went to, you know, Australia, you saw them. You never really saw them all at one time until that moment. And
Yeah.
we were just amazed. And the fact that we're still here talking about it, you know, all these years later, it's amazing. I mean, we can't believe it, and we're so grateful. I mean, we were so young when we started, and we were just really into music, and that's why we did it. And we wrote songs that we wanted to hear other bands play. You know, this is the kind of thing where we thought, you know, if I wasn't in this band, do I want to hear this? And suddenly a lot of other people liked that as well, liked the songs that we liked. And it
Okay.
became this kind of global thing. And I mean, it's great. I mean, it's fantastic. It's such a lovely feeling to know that you did something that affects so many people still, and
Yeah.
that they get what it is you were doing, you know. And if nothing else I ever do kind of really does very much, it doesn't really matter. I was part of that, and that's, you know, I'll always be proud of that.
As you said, when you're into this, you're not so into this because you have your life, so you can see everything. But it's so surprising for the fans, for example, the biggest and hardest fans, and it's incredible. It's almost every fan. It's an incredible fan. They will turn it into. There's a competition. We have almost every show of the band recorded. Uh, Obviously, not 91, 92, but
Mm.
from this to
Yeah.
2017, it's incredible. We have everything.
It's mad.
It's
It's
crazy. It's
mad.
crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is. It is. I mean, like we used to, you know, there were fans that would travel to every show. Like if
Yeah.
if we toured in Europe, you'd see the same faces every night. If we toured in South America, same faces every night. You know, North America, same thing. I mean, it didn't matter where. And to us, it was just incredible that people loved what we did that much. You know, and it's still it's amazing. It still is. And I mean, I get so many messages from people, all lovely messages about, you know, how the music kind of is part of their lives and it helped them through times, you know, hard times. And I mean, you never think of that. When I'm sitting in this room with a guitar on the chair over there, kind of, and I start playing around with something, you know, I would never think, you know, that in 2 years' time, 1,000,000 people or more are going to hear this. It's kind of, I guess if you did that, you probably freak yourself out a bit. So you probably, you know, would find it difficult.
Cannot push it.
Yeah. So it just, it's lovely. And I do honestly appreciate everything guys like you do for the band still to this day. And I know the other guys do as well. And, you know, again, I know I've said it before, but thank you so much.
Okay, it's incredible to talk to you and really appreciate the time too. And the news
Thank you.
with Mell Peck. And just to finish my part, George was said. A fun story. I remember meeting Dolores at an autograph event in 2007. I struck a conversation with her, and at one point I talked about straw projections, but it was about the sleep state of straw projection, not the song, because the song was not released. Then she looked at me with those big green eyes and said, "What did you say? The music?" And I said, "No, I was shocked." And it was really funny to find out that there's a track by that name years and years later. And it's something
because we had that track. Yeah, we had that song for, I guess, we had it like early 2000s, I think it was. I think we played it live even once, we may have.
2003 in Bolzano.
Yeah, and then forgot about it. And it's funny, I had a demo from then, and if I was ever at a party or something, sometimes I would play it to people because I had it here, and I go, oh look, here's a song we never released, because I always really liked it, you know, and it was an early demo of it, and people were like, wow, it's a pity it never got done, you know, but we did it years later anyway. So because it was just one of my favorite songs. And I kept bringing it up every time we'd be in the studio. Remember that song, you know? And we got there in the end anyway, you know. So that's good. It's a good story.
And the bass was great. And so you have a demo. So you have material for the issue of Roses.
I have a demo. Yeah, trying to find it now might be another story. Yeah, I actually think it's on my computer here. I think I put it on digital eventually, the demo.
I'm joking.
You know. But look, thank you again. I hope you like the new music when you hear it. I tell Mel I've been talking to you guys. You know, she'll be excited to hear I was talking to people from her home country. You know.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Lovely to talk to you guys.
This is a dream come true.
Thank you. Thank you both. Talk to you soon. Bye. Keep in touch. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.